exporting and importing inside of different software packages is very, very important. And the reason is you're usually not going to be working just on one like suit. It's very weird. Like I've only been in a handful of projects where they tell you you're only going to be working on like the ZBrush asset or the Maya asset or the Marvelous asset. You usually have to go through multiple stages to deliver the final asset that's being asked from you. So all of the things that we see right here inside of our main like Marvelous Designer file need to be exported out eventually to some softwares like Maya or Blender. However, there's a very interesting thing that happens with both softwares. Blender and Maya work in different scales and actually in different views as well. You can see X, Y, and Z right here are not the exact same ones that we have in Maya here with X, Y, and Z. So when you are exporting, it's very important that you keep a couple of things in mind that I'm just about to show. The first thing that you need to understand is the basic unit of each software. If we go here inside of Blender and we create a cube, this cube right here, if we go to the properties, is going to be a 2 meters cube. That's a very big cube. It's bigger than me. Our character, if you remember, the aperture size of our character is going to be 187 centimeters. So he's quite tall, but not 2 meters tall in this case. In Maya, however, if we create a cube, the cube that's born by default is going to be a 1 centimeter cube. So they're not the exact same thing. And it's very common, especially when you're working in production where people are using multiple softwares, that if you don't export things the way they should be exported, you're going to have an issue. So let's go over here. Let's grab the tabard, for instance. We're going to be using the tabard as an example. I'm going to grab all of the points of the tabard right here. And we're going to go File. We're going to export, and we're going to export in OBJ selected. There's a slightly unfortunate thing here inside of Marvelous, and that's the fact that if you want to export per piece, it's only going to allow you to export in OBJ. It's not my favorite format, but it's a good format. If you export FBX, it's going to export everything. So we're going to export just the OBJ. I'm going to have this mannequin folder on my desktop. I'm going to call this tabard, and we're just going to call this OBJ. Okay, so we know that this tabard is going to be like roughly the size of a 187 centimeters tall human, right? Now, here's a couple of things right here. First, do we want to have all patterns or not? No, we do not want all patterns. We just want the tabard. Do we want the avatars? Well, if you want to select the avatar, you can export every single thing of the avatar as well. The body, the eyes, everything else. In this case, we do not want the avatar. Do we want any graphics and trims? We're not using any graphics or trims right now, so not really. I do want this to be a single object. This is important. A single object means that all of the patterns are going to be combined into one object. If you want to have control over each specific pattern, of course, you can select multiple objects. If you select multiple objects, the next option becomes like disabled. So I'm going to go single object because I want this to be a single piece. But here, this is very important. I do not want to weld the elements. If you weld the elements, what's going to happen is all of the triangles that are on the borders of your pattern are going to be welded together. And that's going to change the way that the normal is smoothing. So you might lose a little bit of detail. So in this particular case, I'm just going to show you how to do with unweld. But if you want, you can weld it. Usually when I export to ZBrush, for instance, to add more detail to my elements or to Blender to sculpt things out, I prefer to keep them unwelded because it's very easy to weld them back together inside of those softwares. And it's more difficult to unweld them if you already welded them. So unwelded and thin. We just want to export the thinness of the object. And over here, you're going to usually get all of this turned on. If you turn on diffuse map, for instance, you're going to get all of these maps. In this case, since I have not like properly like use my UVs, you can see that we're going to get like UVs all over the place. Again, I usually don't like to do that from Marvelous. You can export the maps and it's going to bake the texture down into your elements if you want to do that. But I prefer to have control over that inside of my DCC application. So unified UV coordinates, that's fine. And then we're not going to export any maps right here. Here is the important part, super, super important. If you are exporting for Blender, you need to change your scale to meters, okay? Very, very important. Because if you don't, the object is going to be really big because if you export in millimeters or in centimeters, it's going to multiply this by 10 or by 100 and your object is going to be like a giant. So meters is the scale that you want for Blender. As you can see, there's going to be an axis conversion, X, Y, and Z should work exactly as expected. And if I hit OK, this object is going to be exported. If we go back into Blender, again, remember this cube, I'm just going to move it to the side a little bit. This is a 2 meters cube. It might not seem like so, but that's a 2 meter cube. That's a very big cube. I'm going to say File, Import, OBJ, Wavefront. There's plugins to just drag and drop, but I'm just going to keep it simple. And here I'm going to import the tabard OBJ. Hit Import Waveform Object. And if we do that, it should be right here. Where are you? Wait, it did not import. That's really weird. It did not import. Give me 1 second. There we go. It seems like I made a mistake with the exporting. Nothing on my side. I just deselected the tabard. But look at this. We got it. We got the tabard right here. And you can see it has all of the wrinkles, all of the elements. This is the triangulated mesh. So if we take a look at the wireframe, you can see that every single piece here is made out of a triangle. But the cool thing is, if we grab all of this, we go to the UV editing, you're going to see that we have UVs. So it's going to be very easy to just assign materials, which is what we're going to be doing later on. And as you can see, this has the proper scale. If I were to create a new cube right here, you can see that this is a 2-meter cube. So if we go, let's say, very quickly to the front view and we push it up, then you can imagine that our character is going to fit here perfectly fine. You can rig it. It's going to be very heavy, of course, to rig. I'm going to show you a little bit of retopology later on, but this is how you bring something in. And this one is very important because, for instance, if I want to add the mask, like the doctor's mask, the plague doctor's mask, this is the scale that I need to work with. When I import something into Marvelous, this is the scale that I need to work with. And I'm going to show you that in just a second as well. Now, let's go here very quickly. For Maya, if you're exporting this for Maya, again, we're going to export OBJ selected. We're going to call this tabard Maya. Hit OK. The only thing that's going to change, as you can see, single object, on weld, thin, unify UV coordinates, that's fine. In the scale, we're going to change this to centimeters dash studio and hit OK. And if we do that and we go to Maya, I'm going to be able to go File, Import, we go to Desktop. Where's the mannequin? Right here. And we're going to grab our tabard Maya. And you can see again, that's a cube. That's a 1 centimeter cube. And you can see that that makes sense for the size of our element right here. Anytime you export something, you're going to get slightly different materials. You can see this one has tabard, Mayan, burlap, irregular front. I'm just going to make this a little bit lighter so that we can see the details. And look at how nice everything looks. One thing that I recommend, you should do this on both elements or on both sides, is grab your object, go to your shading tab, so mesh display. You're going to unlock the normals. That's important to free up the normals. And then you want to smooth them out. So mesh display and then soften edge here inside of Maya. That should give you a slightly better result. It's not going to be perfect because remember, all of these are triangles. So there's always going to be a little bit of an issue in certain areas, but you're going to have your geometry ready. If you're a game artist, this is what you retopologize. Here inside of Maya, we can just go here into live surface, go into our quadro, and literally start retopologizing our element right here for our game character. Again, I'm going to show you some retopology tools inside of Marvelous, but this is the process that we would follow for a game character, for instance. Now, how do we bring something inside of Blender? We've already talked about importing an object, but how do we bring an object that's going to live along our character? Well, here in Blender, I actually have a basic mask, the doctor's mask that I'm working on. And this one's right here, mask decimated B2. Now, if I import this mask, one of the things that you are going to notice is that this mask is way too big. Look at that. So the scale of this mask is wrong. It's way too big. However, the pivot point is down here, which is good because I can go to the object, go to the scale, and if I multiply by 0.001, the mask should be going, actually it's 0.01 only, 0.01, the mask should be going to its proper location. Where is it? Oh, it's too small, 0.1. There we go, 0.1. So the mask, as you can see now, lives roughly in the position that it should be. So with this one here, inside of Blender, just Control A, we're going to apply all transforms so that the scale is now set to 1. I'm going to scale this back or export this back. So I'm going to export this as an OBJ, ideally, or it seems like Marvelous works a little bit better with OBJs, even though FBX is really good. I'm going to call this mask and then proper size. I'm going to be giving you guys later on the low poly version of the mask or the game ready version of the mask so that it's not super heavy, but this one works here perfectly fine. I'm going to select it only and hit export waveform. Now, if we go back to Marvelous, I'm going to be able to go File, Import Add, OBJ, and we're going to OBJ this mask proper size. Hit Open. Very important here. What's the scale? If I set this to millimeters, it's not going to work. This one's coming from Blender, so this should be set to meters and hit OK. And if we did this properly, the mask should be right where we want. Hit OK, and there we go. So as you can see, the mask is exactly where we need it to be. Now, keep in mind that this mask that we're adding right here, now it doesn't look like a ninja, right? Like now it's actually looking like a plague doctor. So keep in mind that this mask that we're adding will act as a colliders. So all of the cloth will try to jump to the front of the masks. So in this particular character, what I like to do is I'm just going to grab this mask right here. I'm going to push it forward, like quite forward, something like there. You can see this mask is not finished on the inside, but that way we can just like work on this. You can also right click and there's a way to hide this avatar. So that avatar is not hidden. If we go over here to our scene element, where is it? It's right here on the scene browser. There we go. On the avatars, you're going to see the Thomas and the mask. So if you need to bring the visibility back, the mask is going to be right here. Okay, this is the mesh, and this is all of the properties. The skin offset is the distance that we want from the avatar and things like that. So yeah, that's it. Of course, the question is going to be, how do we bring that avatar back? It's very easy. Just go to this option, and here where it says show avatar, the avatar is going to show. So at any point, you just like click on this. You can show the avatars or not. Again, they are still going to affect. So if I were to create a panel, it's going to drop on top of the character. But this is a very cool way to just like utilize this mask to give an idea or get ourselves an idea of how the character is going to look at the end. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's how you're going to be exporting and importing, or one way to export and import things from and outside of Marvel Designer to both like most commonly used DCC applications. Again, make sure to use the proper scale. It's very, very difficult to work on a pipeline when artists are sending files from here and there with wrong elements. So yeah, that's it. One last thing that I just want to add is, remember, you can export Thomas. That's actually what I did to create this mask. I exported the head of Thomas so that I could use it inside of ZBrush to create this mask as a reference. That's why it fits so nicely with the character right here. So that's it for this one, my friends. I'm gonna see you back on the next one. Bye bye.